All right, greetings everybody. Bronzy's back with another movie review. This one's going to be pretty simple, to be honest. We went and watched Ballerina this last weekend, and I wanted to take a few days to kind of think it over a little bit and just get everything out of it before I give you guys my full-on opinion of it. Ballerina is a movie that is set in the John Wick universe. It is pretty much in between chapter 3 and chapter 4 of John Wick, though I don't think you necessarily have to watch those movies to really like get into this movie, because this is a solid action movie. There's quite a bit of action in this movie actually, and the choreography is actually really good. So as a standalone movie, I think it's really fun. I think it's a good movie. All in all, I don't necessarily think watching the John Wick movies is a bad thing. I think you should probably watch them because you get more context out of the Ballerina movie. But just know that if it feels daunting to have to watch 4 movies before you go and see one movie, you don't necessarily have to. I would say you're honestly probably okay if you don't feel like it, because all in all, this movie doesn't really have a crazy story to it. You know, it's your typical, like, they take everything from her, she trains, and she ends up becoming a badass that gets her revenge. That's pretty much the gist of this movie. It's paced pretty well. I never felt like I was like super bored. The choreography, like I said, was really good. Ana de Armas, she was fantastic. I know normally she's like a kind of a sexy, I don't know how to explain what kind of actress she is, but she's always been in movies where she's kind of the girl that's like, the main chick, or like the girl that's like the wife or something like that. Something like that. She's never really an action person is what I'm trying to say here. And I think for this being her first major action film, I think she did really good. I thought she did really well. I watched a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and it seems like she took this very seriously, and you could see it translate to the screen pretty well as well. Like I said, story isn't anything to go home about. It's pretty much just a revenge story, and they do well. It's good enough. This is pretty much Joan Wick. It's girl John Wick in a way, and she is a badass. And there's a lot of creative kills in this movie, a lot of gore, a lot of just kind of moments where I was like, holy shit. Like almost every fight scene had a moment where I was like, God damn, that's insane. If I had to like rate this movie, I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. I liked it. I know some people are giving it like a 7, 7.5. I would put this movie around like an 8 though. I really do think that it was, if you've seen the 4 John Wick movies, I would still say 1 and 2 are the best 2 out of this 5 quintupleology, whatever this would be. But I think Ballerina fits in right after chapter 2. I think it's a good enough movie to say that it's welcoming to the franchise. It works. Really, the only complaint I have about the movie is kind of a spoiler, so I'll talk about that in a minute. But all in all, I thought this movie was really fun. I went into it kind of expecting a poop from an ass type movie, but it was actually pretty all right. It wasn't really that bad whatsoever. I thought it was going to be kind of woke in a way. I hate saying woke, but I felt like it was going to be one of those movies where it's like girls are going to be empowered, and it really didn't sexualize her. It really didn't like make her seem like she was like baiting people. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't seem like it was that type of movie. They even have a mention of it when they're doing like the montage of her training and everything, where she's getting her ass beat like over and over and over again in this montage. And the trainer pulls her aside, and she's just kind of like, you're always going to be smaller than this guy. You're always going to be weaker. You have to fight like a girl. And she just starts kicking dude in the balls like crazy, and just doing things that like would win a girl fight, win the fight for a girl that's outmatched by a big man. And she uses that throughout the whole movie, where there's just like creativity when it comes to the way she's fighting all the different enemies that she's fighting in this one. A lot of the areas in this movie, it's your typical John Wick movie where it kind of goes from like New York to Prague to here to there. There's a lot of different sceneries, and they did a really good job with just not the choreography, but the cinematography as well. There are a lot of shots that I took from this movie where I was like, damn, I'll probably always remember. That's a really nice shot. Shot in particular is like in the beginning of the movie, they're out on like this dock in the middle of like, the sun's starting to kind of come up, and just the cinematography behind the characters while they're talking on that dock, it just is very memorable, and it looked really good. Obviously, you're not really going to go into a John Wick movie looking for like story shit. I mean, there is like the Continental stuff, and you do get little pieces of lore, but this movie didn't really do a lot for the lore of the John Wick series. I really don't think that I left this movie with any really like substantially new knowledge of the world of John Wick. I did want to talk about Keanu Reeves is in this movie. John Wick is in this movie. That's one of my problems with this movie, to be completely honest. I'm sorry to spoil things. This is where I'm going to start kind of spoiling some of the plot. I don't really think anybody's going into this like expecting there to be like this crazy plot twist or anything. This is, like I said, your typical revenge story in the John Wick universe. Either way, in the trailer, they even showed that John Wick is in the movie, and I understand why John Wick's in the movie. It definitely sells the movie a little bit better. When I saw him in the trailer, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it almost feels a little shoehorned in. And there's two cameos by him. There's the one towards the beginning of the movie when she's in the ballerina place and he shows up, and it's literally a carbon copy of the scene from chapter 3 where he's getting his ticket punched, where they brand him on his back. They show that scene again, and then they just kind of show Eve, who's our main character. She has an interaction with him, and I thought their interaction was really good, very just quick and to the point. And they could have left it alone right there, and I would have been like, damn, that's cool that John Wick was in the movie. At least now I know he goes on and does his own thing in chapters 3 and 4. But towards the later half of the movie, the latter half, she gets to the town that she's trying to get to in Prague. And the town, it's pretty badass. The whole town is like pretty much just a bunch of trained murderers. Everybody is there to protect the town and to protect the guy that she's after. So when she gets there, all hell breaks loose. It's just pure chaos. From the second she walks in, I would say like just action nonstop. And that's about an hour into the movie. It's just nonstop action from that point on. And that's not saying the first like hour of the movie, because it's 2 hours long. That's not saying like the first hour of the movie didn't have action. There's plenty of action in this movie, but more than enough. Just the latter half of the movie was just nonstop action. It seemed like there's a girl that's kind of chasing her around throughout the whole movie, kind of like somebody who's like after her. It turns out that this is her sister, her long lost sister. And Eve didn't know she had a sister, but the sister knew about her and she really missed her. And there's a moment where they kind of are just together in this cabin in Prague, and they fight for a second, and then they realize we're sisters. We should be better. We shouldn't be trying to kill each other. We've already lost our parents. We should try to be normal. And then the guy who's in charge, the guy that the sister's protecting, just kind of like just immediately launches a code red and says, all right, kill both of them. I don't give a fuck. And they bomb the house that they're in. They kill off the sister. And I didn't understand why. Like when they killed off the sister, I was like, oh, well, that sucks. I kind of wanted to get to know the sister. I wanted to see them fight together and stuff like that. Because the whole town, like I said, it's like an hour of just like, Eve running through the town trying to escape these people. And then out of nowhere, they're like, we're sending in a specialist to stop her. And they send John Wick in. Here's where my problem with his cameo comes in. They have a little fight scene, and then he kind of disappears for a bit, and then he has his own little fight scene, and then that's it for him pretty much. But like, she's running through the town by herself, killing all these people, and John Wick's like kind of watching her the whole time. And then she's about to straight up die. Like she's about to get burned to death by a flamethrower. And the flamethrower scene is really cool. If you've seen it in the trailer, it was pretty badass. John Wick saves her by shooting the canister of like the enemy that had the flamethrower as well, and helped her out. And it just like, first off, that pisses me off because it steals her thunder as a character. Second off, it's dumb because like, I don't remember at any point in chapters 3 and 4, him going to Prague on a mission to stop this girl. Like there was never a moment like that. And you could be like, well, they retconned it so they could make Ballerina. It doesn't mean they had to write it like that, though. It just didn't really make sense to me. And the fact that they killed her sister off 3/4 of the way in, they could have taken that badass bitch and put her back to back with Eve. And since she knows the town, they could have run through that town together and teamed up. And then maybe they kill off the sister at the end, right when you as the audience member starts to really like her after all the badass scenes she's been through. I just thought that was kind of dumb, and it kind of defeated the purpose. Like it's one of those moments where it's like made it where this main character, this chick, is super independent and she is really strong on her own without having to tell us that she's strong on her own. And then you bring John Wick into the equation, who is just unstoppable. And even it's funny too, because like the NPCs or the bad guys that they're fighting in the town, they acknowledge, they're like, this is a waste of fucking time. This is John Wick. And the one's like, you're a pussy. And then John Wick shows up and just busts them both. And it's just like, that's cool. And like, I was happy to see John Wick fighting, but after the 4th movie, when they killed him off, like them doing the Ballerina was kind of their way of going, okay, this is a new character taking over. And for the most part, she should, and she probably will take over as the main John Wick character. But bringing him in was just kind of like a money grab, in my opinion. Like it just wasn't really necessary at all. And I'm starting to yap about it a little bit, but it just kind of stuck with me how annoying it was to have John Wick at the end scene in that movie. Instead of just letting her be that independent character, her and her family member doing stuff together instead, or just having her save herself in general, it would have been way better. Because I know in like John Wick, like he's been saved by people multiple times and these are his friends throughout the years, but she's new to the game. She doesn't have friends. She's just this chick that has to make her own like legacy, pretty much like John Wick did in a way. And her being so new to this, you'd think that she would have help from like a family member that she's been looking for or something like that. I don't want to spoil too much of it anymore, but just in quick summary, I thought that was kind of the dumbest thing about the movie, the whole John Wick cameo stuff, but I get why they did it. They had to advertise him in the movie. They had to get people in theaters, but I thought this movie was fine on its own. Like, it was fine without, if you took out the John Wick scene at the end, the movie was badass. Like, there was a lot of badass scenes. I did just want to say, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like the video. It helps me out quite a bit. Comment, let me know what you thought of the movie, the review. Do you like the John Wick series? Do you not like it? Did you like Ballerina? Let me know all that good stuff. I'm going to give it like an 8. I thought it was like an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a good movie. I think it's a movie that you should go and see in theaters because it was high octane action. There was a lot of action in this movie, and it was well put together. It was fun. It was good. You got a little bit of lore, not a lot, but you got a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it'll lead to more Ballerina movies as well. But all in all, I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really good time. And also the movie is directed by, I believe his name is Len Wiseman. He's the guy who's behind the Underworld movies, you know, those old vampire versus vampire versus werewolf movies. They were kind of cheesy, had a lot of like grungy style to them. I didn't hate those movies at all, but he directed all of those as well as the last Die Hard movie that happened. So this guy's reputation as a director, he doesn't have many great movies under his belt. He's got some stylish movies under his belt. And I thought this movie was probably his best movie he's done over the years. He did a good job. I think he did a good job compared to Underworld. You know, this movie is hot, but it's not like it's stylish. It's very stylish, and it's got a lot of really good scenes in it. So I recommend this movie. 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.